Hi everybody, this is the video lecture for 22.2 Part B, the role of third parties. Let's get cracking. All right, for almost all of American history, presidential election has been dominated by two parties at a time. You guys just watched the earlier video lecture where we looked at the first party system and the second party system. Remember, in the first party system, we had our Federalists and our Democratic Republicans, right? Two main parties. That was replaced with the second party system where we had our Democrats and our Whigs. You should remember that the Whigs were created when the Democrat Party split. Mostly people who didn't like Jackson left the party. And then that party picked up a lot of the old Federalist supporters. So for almost all of American history, we've been dominated by two parties at a time. Sometimes, though, a third party forms. Okay, sometimes a third party will come about. Sometimes it's to support a cause or an idea. For example, the Republican Party, which we ended the last lecture with, moving to that third party system. The Republican Party formed because there was no political party that spoke to the belief of opposing slavery. So when people remember, what's the point of a political party? Political parties are there to help citizens get their ideas into government, right? And to help influence the government so that their beliefs are put into policy. Well, back then, before the Republican Party was formed in 1854, neither party had adopted the position of abolishing slavery. However, in both parties, there were people who were like, I want to abolish slavery, and neither of these parties are suiting my beliefs. So in comes the Republican Party. Right, the Republican Party was a third party to the Democrats and the Whigs, for example. So third parties, they sometimes form also to back a candidate. So previously we had the example, Republican Party, where they're forming based on a belief or an idea, right? A cause. The cause here was abolishing slavery. But sometimes it's more about an individual. This video here is a really funny explanation of what happened with this guy here, Teddy Roosevelt, as he was a leader of a third party. So sometimes the third party will come about because it's around an individual. Often that happens because somebody split from the party. Teddy Roosevelt, loved Teddy Roosevelt. He failed to win the Republican nomination in 1912. So he formed a progressive party called the Bull Moose Party. Now, where the heck does that name come from? Well, he was interviewed by a reporter and they're like, Teddy, how do you feel about your chances? And he was like, I feel as good as a bull moose. A bull moose would be like a really big moose. So that's where the party came from. Roosevelt lost the election and then the party stopped to exist. Again, the party was based on a person. It wasn't really about a cause. Unlike here with the Republican Party was formed to oppose slavery. So this video it's like 5 minutes long, tell you a bit more about Roosevelt. All right, so challenges. Obviously, as America is dominated by a two-party system, where does the third party fit? Like, how does that person even, get involved? So in nationwide elections, third party candidates face many problems. Number one, it might be difficult to even just get on the ballot, right? It might be hard to even get your candidate on the voting form because election laws typically favor the two major parties. I know in Rhode Island, when Bernie Sanders was running, you had to get 10,000 signatures. So depending on like what the rules are, it might be hard to get 10,000 people to say, hey, I want this person on the ballot, especially if I don't know who that person is. And then if maybe I already decided, hey, I'm going to vote for the Republican candidate, or I'm definitely going to support the Democratic candidate. Why then would I sign on to allow a third person to run? So that's one big obstacle. The next thing is about money, especially today. We're going to talk about this later on this year. Money makes politics go round. It's a big problem in our society. It's incredibly expensive to run for office. And some people might not contribute money to a third-party candidate because they doubt that the third-party candidate can actually win. It's kind of one of those cycles, right? Like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Can you not win because you can't get money? Or can you not get money because you can't win? Right? How does that function? Other people, let's say you get on the ballot. Let's say you have a decent base of support. You have some funds. That being said, sometimes people won't vote for you because they feel like they're wasting their vote, right? Why would I vote for a third party candidate when I know the winner is going to be either the Democrat or the Republican? However, in state and local elections, third party candidates actually frequently win offices. I know, especially like in Vermont, for example, there's a pretty big independent party. And Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, is actually an independent. Influence of third parties. Okay, this video up here, this is long. It's like 18 minutes, but it's hilarious. I highly recommend you watch it. It talks about third parties in the 2016 election. Very good here. So even though the third party candidates rarely win major elections, they actually still play a really important role in American politics. A third party candidate can actually change the outcome of the election, even if they don't win, right? If we go back to this item here, some people think that voting for a third party candidate would be wasting their vote. Well, sometimes the third party candidate will not take votes, but will win votes that might have gone to another candidate if that third party person wasn't there. So for example, in the 2000 election, which, oh my goodness, what a nightmare, the 2000 election. The Green Party candidate, Ralph Nader, the Green Party is still around. The Green Party's main focus is environmental policies. So again, this party is not formed around Ralph Nader. It's formed around the environmental policies, the cause of supporting the environment. He won many votes, especially in Florida, that probably would have gone to the Democratic candidate Al Gore, right? Typically, these voters who would have voted for the Green Party definitely align more with the Democrat in the race. But given the option, if you vote for the third party, that means that those votes are not going to Al Gore. As a result, Al Gore didn't get as many votes as he thought he would, and George W. Bush won the very close election. Now, the election of 2000, what a nightmare. As you can see by these people here. There's so much in this election that I'm not even going to go into it. This is about 15 minutes long. It's really interesting on the election of 2000. There was a Supreme Court case that came out of this. And this really changed the history of America, especially because George W. Bush, who came out as the victor, as soon, in his first year of his presidency was 9/11. So when you think about how history could have been different, what would history have been like if Al Gore had won the election and he was the one handling 9/11? I don't know. We will come back to the election of 2000 later, but if you're interested, this video is pretty cool. Okay, we're almost done. The influence of third parties continued. Third parties can also play a key role by bringing up new ideas or pressing for action on certain issues. So maybe you're a candidate representing a third party and you're not going to win, but you want to run the race because you want to get a certain perspective out there. You want people to listen to what you have to say. Again, really looking back at why political parties exist. For example, in the 1992 election, independent candidate Ross Perot made national debt a major issue. He wanted people to be aware of the national debt. He was campaigning on eliminating the national debt. And because he was out there on the campaign trail talking specifically about that issue, it basically forced Republicans and Democrats to address that issue more directly. If he hadn't been out there, honking the horn on the bullhorn every day talking about this issue, the Republican candidate and the Democrat candidate wouldn't have felt a lot of pressure to respond to the issue of the national debt. Now, this is interesting because in that election in 1992, he got 19% of the popular vote. This was the strongest showing for a third-party candidate in 80 years. So that goes to show you that Americans at the time truly felt that the national debt was a big issue. This is Ross Perot right here. Perot went on to transform the support into a permanent party. He formed what's called the Reform Party. Perot ran as the Reform Party's candidate for president in 1996, but he only received 8% of the vote. However, he left politics after that election, and the party mostly lost influence. I mean, he lost, but it still matters because it did force the other two major parties to consider the issue of the national debt more closely. So that is the end of 22.2 Part B. Next part, we're going to look at the characteristics of today's parties. This is always so awkward when I try to end the video. Always so awkward. But that's okay. That's okay.